listening to Shoot It Now, your weekly podcast about indie filmmaking and big-budget films with award-winning filmmaker Craig Newland.
And welcome to another Shoot It Now podcast. My guest today is a Spanish filmmaker with film credits that include A Single Man, Buried, The Awakening, The Gift, Suffragette, Gringo, Boy Erased, and others. Edu Grau, welcome to Shoot It Now.
Thank you. Hello.
Good to have you on the show. Now, you're a cinematographer from Spain. You went to film school, but as early as a young boy, your father would take you to art galleries. So the seeds of composition, textures, and light may have been influencing your mind without even knowing it. Perhaps start us off with the art galleries and your father, and talk us through film school and short films and how you got this career going.
Oh, wow. That's a long story. Yeah, my dad has always been very interested in art, probably more like naturalistic, avant-garde or contemporary, But so I remember a lot of weekends, what we'll do is me and my sisters will go around galleries with my dad and just appreciate old school, paintings from all over and museums, So as early as 13, I was with my best friend, we both kind of got really into making films and wanting to go to film school. And it just got into my mind. And when I was 13 and at 18, I joined SCAC, which is the Barcelona Film School. It was newly created 5 years before that, but it was just had a lot of really beautiful teachers that were full of passion and will to teach, and not a lot of experience, not a lot of credits, but that kind of energy, and I learned a lot from that. I was addicted to filmmaking, during those 4 years of film school, I 20 hours a day of film, and slept 4 and then keep going, that was kind of, for a few years, that was kind of my vibe. And then I finished film school, I worked with, I did a lot of short films in every department. I also kind of learned producing, I learned directing at film school. But there was something that stood up above all, that was cinematography. It was not only the most fun, but also, a great combination of, artistic, enjoyable, very active as well, because you always have to be on the move. You always have to be just going. Whereas, other things are a lot more like a roller coaster. They go up and down, A cinematographer never stops. We call it cool inquieto in Spanish. It's your ass is never still. So I was one of those guys, So cinematography kind of fit me, and I was not very good at first. I was not born to do this, But it just got on my head. I had to do it. I had to work hard, and I worked very, very hard. Obviously there is things in art that you can learn and can be taught, and some others that no, that they are your aesthetic, your eye, your sensibility. I think it was a combination of learning and also just kind of letting loose that creative side of mine, and all these things together. When I came out of film school in Barcelona, I was I did a short film as a DP that won in Sundance, the best short of the year. And, 6 months later, I did a movie, my first ever movie at 23. So I was very lucky, but I also had that energy, that kind of passion that was kind of contagious and kind of people fall in love with it. And what I didn't know myself about filmmaking or about cinematography, I would just, kind of attitude, I think, at the end of the day. So I did my first film at 23. That film ended up being in Cannes. It was I didn't even get paid. It was probably the whole budget of the movie was under 20K. No one got paid in there, but we got into Cannes, it's been a dream of me since, to go back there. And then I went to another film school. It was one of those times, that you feel oh, I'm 23. Yeah, I won Sundance and I've had a movie in Cannes, but still have a lot to learn and people won't hire me. I'm too young. So I went to film school in London at the National Film and Television School, which was amazing. But it was another thing. It was, instead of like learning attitude and passion and the will to kind of do things your own way, it was kind of more like more official, that kind of like the more industry related, like kind of this kind of English way of doing things properly, and but I learned that. I learned English, which is still not very good yet, but we're getting there. And I kept growing and growing in 2 years in film school in London and shooting, basically, because that's how it goes.
So, the London, 2 years at London Film School, it sounds like that really honed your organizational skills. And one of the key roles of a cinematographer is to be organized. Yes, a cinematographer can be taken for granted because most of the time, a good cine, it's a very seamless and fluid process. In other words, cast and crew don't notice the myriad of things a cinematographer is doing day on day. And if you don't have good time management skills, the ability to instruct, guide, schedule, explain the big picture, and people manage behind the camera, if you can't do that, then you won't become a good cinematographer. So, Edu, people wanting to move up into the cine's role, what would you tell them about the process of being a well-organized cinematographer?
Yes, you have to have your head in a good place in terms of organization, technical aspects. Our job is being a creative, but also being a bit technical. So, but there is no set up rules about how to be a cinematographer. So I've seen of DPs that they're total chaos as well, and they get along because their creative side takes so much over that it's like, people accept it because you are also allowed to be very creative. Obviously the greatest is to combine both, to be able to be very creative but at the same time a bit organized, and a leader. There's a bit of responsibility and a bit of organization that helps everyone in the crew. So everyone gets it the way they can and the way the best they can achieve it. So I think it's kind of forgiving being a DP. You can go one side or the other or have them both, in a perfect world. So it's not like a producer that needs to be a lot more organized. A DP, there is a bit of it that he's lucky or she's lucky, that we are lucky that other people take care of the more organizational stuff. So, it definitely helps everyone, but it's not necessarily, I would say.
And I want to talk about A Single Man because I love the way that this was shot, the way it was
Oh,
acted, the aesthetic, everything about this film. And I think you were 27 when you landed this job and had never been to Los Angeles before, which means that to Tom Ford's credit, he took a risk. Is it true that you eventually got the biggest gig of your life, which came down as a result of you talking to a girl at a movie theater?
yes, basically that's more or less how it happened. Yes, basically I was alone at the line at the Edinburgh Film Festival at 12 o'clock at night, and I start talking to the person next to me who happened to be a producer. She had a movie there, and we just started chatting, and she happened to know a lot of DPs that were my heroes. And all of a sudden, before we knew it, we just became friends. Like we hung out, we partied together. Shortly after, I visited her in New York a year later, and I dropped my DVD reel. And literally 5 days later, she called me that she had received a call from a friend of hers, producer of Tom Ford's A Single Man, that they were looking for a DP, and they've seen all the reels in Los Angeles, and they were all too fancy, too flashy, too conventional, and he was looking for someone bold, European style, fun, fast, and cheap. And because it was a smallish, $5 million movie. It just all happened very fast, and before I knew it, I was on a plane, reading the script and meeting Tom Ford, and that's how it all happened very quickly. All of a sudden, my life completely changed at 27.
That is an incredible story. I don't
Yeah.
believe in fate, but I do believe in timing. And
Exactly.
you never know who you're talking to, right? And here
Exactly.
this opportunity to change your life in an instant takes
Yeah.
place. And you mentioned that Tom Ford was looking for more of a European cine.
Yeah.
Obviously, you shared that similar taste that you talk about. I wonder if this is where your father taking you to those art galleries really starts to bring home the bacon with the way all of this encapsulates and folds into itself.
Yeah, it's a good way of watching it. Yeah, I also think there is a European sensibility that is like, well, we are all from where we come from, and there is a European sensibility that is different than an American sensibility or like a New Zealand sensibility, because of all the things that surround your life and your day to day, when you grow up, So I think that he was a bit bored of the American way of seeing the world, and he was looking for something different. And I was very, very lucky in the right place in the right time, because I had a reel that was all short film, shot on 16mm handheld, very grainy and dark, and my reel had like classical music all over, whereas everyone was doing flashy, bright, colorful images, as clean as possible. And I just had gone to film school and was doing the opposite. So he saw that and he was like, whoa, this is so different of what I'm seeing, that he got really attracted to it immediately. And I was very lucky. And you have to find someone like Tom Ford who can take a chance with a 27-year-old Spanish guy and never done a movie in America. You have to find someone very ballsy to choose that guy to be his DP on his first feature film. It's a lot to his credit as well. I mean, it's amazing who, the attitude you have to and the confidence you have to have in yourself to choose someone like that. And I would like to know how many directors out there are would be happy to make such a bold choice, on their first movie, in Hollywood, like a $5 million movie. A lot of respect for Tom. And what you were saying, my granddad always used to say that everyone gets a chance in life to choose or to change their life. Always there is always that moment that comes that if you go that path or you go the other one, your life will change forever. But he always says that there's only certain people that have, they are in the right set of mind to take that choice, to go for it, and to do the right moves, so the life goes in the right path. And I think that's all about. There is also a bit of that. I was in the right time in the right place, but then I was also in my mind was perfectly aligned for that moment. I was like, I got ready, and I was ready to go for it. I just took off the fear off my shoulders, and I just like, what? Let's go for it. Let's try to make it. Let's do what I know, even if it's not enough. I'll do it the best I can, and I think that ended up working out.
Yeah, for sure. How many other directors do this? I would say very, very few. You are one of probably a handful that you can count in history on one hand. Most first-time directors, particularly in somebody like a Tom Ford that has the ability to bring in somebody that has a lot more experience, he didn't do it. The film Buried. If there is ever a challenge to a cinematographer, this has to be the Everest of challenges of them all. To shoot around a box, a coffin, I heard that a red was considered, but you shot on 35mm film. And just the dirt alone, if for just one reason to shoot on film, then it would have to be the dirt element.
Yes. I mean, Buried was like, one of those films that you receive. Someone tells you the idea, oh, yeah, it's a movie in a coffin. And you're like, that cannot be true. That cannot be good. And then suddenly you read the script and it was like so moving and such a roller coaster of emotions that you're like, okay, that's once in a lifetime opportunity to do a movie in a coffin. There's not. I cannot think of a smaller space to do a a movie, you know. So I was like, yeah, I think I should do it. I had other offers in the table at that point, but I was like, there's only one coffin movie in history, you know, and I think I should do it. And then Rodrigo is a super clever, talented director with a vision, you know, and we were like looking for it. We tested, it was the early stages of digital. We tested the red, and suddenly it was like, you know, we're film guys. We like it, but also make sense in the respect that it's like the grain, the texture, it felt more organic, more alive. It felt dirtier. It felt more like in tune with the dust of the desert, you know, that we're trying to represent. You know, it just felt more right. But needless to say, it was a lot more stressful. You know, those, you know, a Zippo light in a coffin, it's not the easiest thing. You know, it's like it's not the brightest thing. Let's say it. So it was pretty scary to shoot. You know, sometimes it was pretty. You know, I lost a lot of hair on that movie. You know, I suffered a lot, but I always think that you have to take choices. You have to take, you have to make choices. You have to take chances, you know. And I think the stronger your choices, the more difficult and riskier, I think, the more pleasure they give you as a result, you know. And that was a good choice. That was one of those that, like, making a movie in a coffin on 35, it just remains as one of my ultimate favorite movies that I've done, you know, because the challenge was so enormous that I think, you know, when I watch it, I still like, wow, how did we do that? You know, because I've erased how we did it, but it's just like the result is there, and it's like I'm still surprised of what we did. I think it's really, really fun to watch.
And Ryan Reynolds is not just acting, but he is also working with you on the lighting for the whole film, it seems to me, because he's holding the light source. So it becomes a bit of a dance between you and Ryan Reynolds. Is that how that worked out in terms of lighting the coffin?
Yeah, I mean, I always say that Ryan was my gaffer on that movie, almost.
Yeah.
You know, it's like there was so, you know, he's an amazing guy, a really skillful actor, you know, and he took a chance on that movie. You know, it was a small $1 million movie in a coffin in Spain, and suddenly, you know, he just went there because he wanted to be challenged as an actor, and he proved that he was it's one of those actors that they have it. They have the face, but also the acting skill. You know, I was very, very impressed, and believe me, I work with a lot of talented actors, and Ryan really impressed me. You know, and so it was very fascinating working with him because he was also he could be very technical. You could tell him, look, in that moment, just point the torch in this direction, it bounces you, and it just, you know, and it looks like this. And then in this sentence, just go here. So, and he would be crying on that scene, and he would still do it exactly like you said it, in the words you said it. And it was pretty amazing, you know, to see that. You know, obviously when you have an actor like that, you can be more playful. You can, you know, filmmaking is a team playing, you know, and you need the actors, you need every single member of the crew to be on the same, you know, on the same road, you know, going in the same direction, you know. So the more people there are on that road, you know, going in the director's vision, the better is the result. So it was a joy, you know, working with that crew in that movie, you know, and we all felt we're doing something special, and we raced to the ambition, you know.
Somebody like Ryan has done so many films. He probably knows just as much as what a gaffer knows. So, you know, the language he understands. I want to come back to confidence. A cinematographer needs confidence. Sometimes that means following your gut, risking something where the outcome might not be obvious from the outset, but you follow your instincts and just go for it, which reminds me of your film Suffragette, because you took a chance working on 16 millimeter film. Of course, digital was available, but being instinctive and coming back to the confidence I talk about, you went for it and shot on 16 millimeter, and the resulting look of this period piece is achieved by stepping outside your comfort zone. Is that the way that you see it?
Yeah, totally. I mean, there is a bit of that. There is also, I think, it's every story tells you the way it has to be shot or it could be shot. And I saw, the possibility here with Sarah Gavron, the director, that we didn't want it to be in the old fashioned, BBC drama look. We wanted to step it up. Would be a bit more risky, just to be a bit more playful, and we just decided that going 16 was more suitable for the Suffragette. If the Suffragettes could choose the format, they would shoot 16. You know what I mean? There's something small and revolutionary and fast, and there's something aggressive about the grain. There's something beautiful about the texture. So we just went that route, and it just happened that I think the first day of the shoot, we're like, wow, the way that choice changed the movie was pretty beautiful to see. It just made us more mobile, more free, and more playful as well. So we were with small zooms on 16 mil, shooting, and two cameras moving around, and it was a beautiful ballet to see. To see us working in that movie, I enjoy it a lot, as an experience. Then we tested, and the night scenes were a bit too grainy on 16, so we combined it with Alexa, fucking it up as much as we can for the night scenes. So I think overall it was like 60 or 70% of it was on film. So sometimes you have to make choices. You have to have an attitude, and again, you might lose some hair, you might get some white hairs. You're closer to reaching happiness. The more you risk it, the more pleasure or the more alive you feel making movies. And that was a beautiful lesson to keep learning.
And when you are looking through the lens, you as a cinematographer, as you say, you're looking for interesting composition that will help tell the story, help propel the story. Sometimes you don't know when it will be found in that moment of looking for it, but when the idea, an interesting visual that helps tell the story comes along, you know it instantly. Do you think that some people overanalyze what a cine looks for when they're looking through the lens, like setting up some framing and using formulas instead of just being instinctual and following your gut intuition?
Yes, I think a bit like this, that we need, that you need to find something, that you need to keep looking, and then suddenly it's just like it screams at you like, oh, this is right, this feels right. And I think that's a lot of the ways how I operate. It is very useful to prepare. It is very useful to have a plan. Concepts are always welcome. At the end of the day, are one of the most important things of filmmaking. Having a concept, but also there is something about finding it, looking for it, keep looking for it, and then suddenly stumble into it, just suddenly find it. There is also something to be said about that in filmmaking. And I always, when I'm shooting, I keep saying, like, let's shoot and learn. Let's rehearse and learn. Like, let's do it, let's try it, and learn something, and just change it and make it better. And because I think it's there's so many decisions you need to make to do a good shot. That it's like sometimes, and some of them are luck. Some of them are not, something that you can even think or prepare before, because it's something that it happens on the moment in the place where you are at that certain time. So it's like you need to keep looking. You need to have your eyes, your ears open and ready to catch that thing that makes that shot, that moment special, that scene special. So, and everyone is involved in this search. Those are the sets that I enjoy the most, when the actors, the director, the sound guy, the art department, we're all looking for something. We're all working together. Then when you find it, it's like, wow, that was unique. That was fascinating. That's why we love doing our job.
And another one of your films, The Gift, currently streaming on Netflix, directed by Joel Edgerton, who is such a thoughtful, nuanced director. Being a great actor doesn't hurt either. What I really like about this film is the pacing of it. It's not heavy with dialogue and has the right amount of information. It's economical with what it's wanting to do. I rewatched the film last night because of our interview this morning. And it looks to me like you are very comfortable, settled, very relaxed. You know everything that you need to do, what you need to achieve. Shooting around the house, you seem to be doing that with ease. Did you feel particularly comfortable on this film?
There's a maturity when you keep making films that it comes with time, obviously. But it was a tricky film, it was Joel's first film. He's always been a really good actor, but, it was a lot of unknowns on that film. It was like a very fast pacing, 23-day shoot movie, and it was like a lower budget than I was doing. But and I didn't have my usual crew either, so it was kind of, well, no, some of it I had. I find it interesting that you see it as a very settled movie. I think I was a bit on the edge, and I think I know what you're saying. There's a bit more of the confidence. It was more
Yes.
Hitchcockian. It was more Hitchcockian in the way it was done and shot. And that's what I was looking for. We were looking for. Like it was a contemporary version of a movie of the 90s, like Fatal Attraction, mixed with Hitchcock and mixed with Joel's vision, So it's like, it was a strange combination of things that made it what it is. It's a movie I really like because it's very enjoyable. It's like you watch it and it's the way it delivers information, the way it moves along, the way it surprises you when you are more settled and you think you know where that movie is, surprises you the most, So it's a movie I enjoy a lot. And again, it was also luck to find Joel. I was doing a short film with a friend, and then they introduced me to Joel, who was, the brother of one of the actors, Nash, So and when I met him, it was that kind of feeling of, wow, I wish I could be friends with a guy like this. He seems so down to earth. He's so truthful, honest, nice, sweet, that it's just a pleasure to be around people like this, and he turned out to be exactly like that, and a joy to be to work with, and very clever. He knew everything he needed to know about filmmaking. It was not like he was a first time director and knew a lot, because he understands the medium. He understands what's at stake, what's important, what makes it special, So it was working with Joe was a pleasure.
And you obviously like working with him because you did the film Boy Erased, and you decided to shoot on digital rather than film because you had a reasonable sized cast and some actors that didn't have a lot of big film experience. But there was a trade off when you shot on film all the exterior shots and used an Alexa for the digital inside shots. Not the first time that you've done that. I
Yeah.
haven't heard of this really happening to a great extent. The great thing with an Alexa is that you can dial in that film look, so the matching isn't
Yeah.
miles apart. And the fact that you have separated the interior and exterior shots helps a lot anyway. It's a really creative option, which as a viewer, one would never detect, although the film geeks now are going to rush to go and have a look at the film again. How satisfying, though, was that for you to be able to do that?
Well, I mean, from our initial conversations, we wanted to shoot Boy Race on film, but then because we wanted that, that slightly more periody look, but also like, again, going back to the texture, to the feeling of like being more grounded and more earthy, and we like that. But also we realized that we had a lot of kids that they needed a lot of attention and time, and sometimes film it's less fast in the sense of you need to reload and things like that, So less, I don't know, beautiful to shoot on the Alexa is normally like the exterior daytimes, because that's when the highlights get a bit more, not as interesting, and the color gets a bit off. And so we just went that path, the path that, shooting on film, the exteriors too, so we could set the look for the interiors, and be a bit more seamless. It was a decision, not the first time, but obviously it was annoying for production because we had to carry both, all the cameras and the film and so on. But it just turned out to be, it was good. I think I like it. I think there is a couple of scenes that could have been better on film, but I'm happy. I'm happy setting the tone and the look and the texture of film, and then we kind of got the Alexa closer to it afterwards. So that was kind of the approach, and I think we did okay. I'm not 100% convinced or happy with the result, but I think that the thought was there, and sometimes you have to try and to go somewhere, and to not do the usual. I think that's where it came from.
I want to get your take on where we are right now in terms of resolutions. There are films being shot in 8K. Then, like it or not, we have these televisions that have such a high nit rating. The average nit seems to be around 500 to 600 nits, but there are televisions that are over 1,000 nits, which means that everything is getting brighter and brighter. There is this generation that is born into these high resolution television screens, and if this younger generation doesn't go to the cinema, they will never see the contrasting difference of an aesthetic filmmaking look. So how much does that worry you as a cinematographer?
Yes, it's a great question. I think I'm coming from that amazing time where there was a mixture between digital and film, where there was different looks, different aesthetics that you could go for and you could find, using the different mediums, and the different projecting mediums also. It was different, your TV, then going to a cinema 35, and then it came the digital cinema. I think, whatever it's like more possibilities, more creative possibilities to create a look, it's always good. And I also think that, we are a bit over obsessed about resolution. I don't think that this 4K is necessarily more beautiful than one that is 1K. I don't think it's necessarily better. Yeah, it's a bigger number. 4K, 8K, it's great. Yeah, you think it's going to be some things that I don't need to see. I don't need to see the pores of the skin of the actor. I don't need to see it. I'm better with a softer look at it. It's like saying that because you see more cleaner and more perfect on a painting, that it's better than a Pissarro or a Monet. It's just like it's not. The resolution. It's not necessarily better for an image. It's not necessarily the path. But yes, I understand they need to sell TVs. They need to sell. They need to keep the audience buying stuff, and that's why we are over obsessing about these things and believing that it's better. But it's not necessarily. I am pretty sure that if you will put an audience in front of an 8K and a 2K, some of them would not see the difference, and some of them will prefer the 8K, and some of them hopefully will also prefer the 2K. So I think it has to be like this. It has to be a subjective thing. It has to be a perceptual thing. It cannot be a technical, oh yeah, 8K is definitely better than 2K. It's not exactly like this. So I think we need to keep our minds open. Of course, there are images that you prefer to see in 8K because you see more the detail, but some others not necessarily. I think every project, every viewer should find their own opinion.
You're right to say that it's all about selling televisions because it's down to It's down to marketing, because they've been selling the 4K televisions for a number of years, and now that is deemed old marketing spin. So now they're pushing the 8K televisions, and the forecast is that we are going to have 20,000 nits in the future, which you might as well be staring at the sun. It's going to be so bright.
Exactly. And I get it. It's but I don't know if like if the human eye needs that much information sometimes. But it's again, I think it's opinions. I think it's like subjective viewing. And everyone should choose what is best and not be mind blown or by the number. 8K being better than 2K for sure. It's not.
And what's on the horizon for you at the moment? Have you got anything in post, anything that's coming up?
Yeah, I mean, just before the pandemic, The Way Back came out, the Ben Affleck movie that I'm pretty happy with. And then now it's like Passing, the movie that Rebecca Hall directed, her first movie as a director, with Tessa Thompson and Ruth Negga, is coming out the next year. It's coming for the awards, I hope. It's a black and white movie shot on 4:3 aspect ratio, so completely different from anything I've done before. So I'm very, very excited. I think it's a really good movie, actually.
Edu, it's been a great conversation with you to discover all sorts of things about you as a young boy, going to the art gallery with your father, and to talking to girls in cinemas that led to your first breakout feature. I'm certainly looking forward to seeing what comes next, and thanks very much today for coming on to Shoot It Now.
Thank you so much. An absolute pleasure.
You've been listening to Shoot It Now with Craig Newland, your weekly podcast about all things behind the camera and in front of it. Until next time, have a great week.